like we've only got a couple people in here. So, I'm going to introduce myself again. My name is Marisol, and I have late-stage chronic Lyme disease. If you want more information about my illness, you could check out the link in my profile. It'll take you to my YouCaring page. And you can also check out my YouTube channel, which has all my previous broadcasts from Periscope. And there's more information about my illness there as well. So today I have a book review. That's what I do here on Periscope. Every Thursday I do book reviews on books that I feel would be helpful for people with chronic health issues. Sometimes they're self-help books. Sometimes they're just regular books that I feel would be beneficial to read, or just books that I recommend that I think are pretty cool. Hi Nezo, welcome. So today I have a book called The Dance of Anger. And it says, The Dance of Anger, A Woman's Guide to Changing the Patterns of Intimate Relationships. Now I know it says woman on the front, and we'll get to that. I have a bit of a problem with that, so we'll talk about that. But if you are a guy, this is not exclusive to women, in my opinion. So, I always start off by talking about why I got this book. I always try to give each book a backstory, because sometimes, you know, the books that I read are kind of obscure and people want to know, well, why did you even get this book? Hi, J. Manuel. Welcome. So I got this book. I believe it was during the time, hi, PJ, that I was married. I think I've talked about this before. I was married to someone that had a psychiatric condition, and I had to do a lot of reading about his condition. And with that reading came more reading, and with that reading came more reading. All of the books recommend other books, so I think this was one of the books that was also recommended to read. But I was also especially interested in this book because anger issues run in my family, on both sides. And hi TJM, welcome. And I wanted to learn how to improve my communication skills, not only with my ex-husband, but also within my family, because there are a lot of anger issues and problems there. So, so I got this book because it really spoke to me. Hi, Kearney, welcome. And like I said, if you guys are not following me, please follow me and I will follow you back. I don't only do book reviews. I do come on here sometimes and just talk and just, you know, have fun. But every Thursday I try to do a book review. And sometimes on Tuesdays I'll talk about, I don't know, something interesting that I read in a magazine. So this book is written by Harriet G. Lerner, PhD. She's an internationally acclaimed expert on psychology, on the psychology of women. She's a psychologist and psychotherapist at the Menninger Clinic. She's a lecturer, consultant, and workshop leader. She has appeared on Donahue and the Oprah Winfrey Show. So that should give you an idea of how old this book is. This book is not recent. I believe it was published in the late 80s, early 90s, something like that, because we all know that Donahue is not a thing on TV anymore. I can barely even remember what Donahue is. Hi, UFK, welcome. So the type of book, this is a psychology, self-help type of book, but it also says on the back that it's a women's studies book. And like I said, I take issue with that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The target audience for this book is angry people or women. Again, that's kind of an issue. So, but I just want to talk about the book a little bit first, and then I'll talk about what I like and what I didn't like. So the focus of this book, it helps to improve, hi Jonah, welcome. It helps to improve communication and interpersonal skills in order to reduce anger. So it identifies common patterns in relationships that lead to misunderstandings. Hi, how are you? It identifies mistakes we make when we are asking for something. And the book is targeting women, but I feel as I read this, hi Wuji, welcome. I feel that as I read this book, these issues are also, exactly, that's sort of the assumption that this book is making, which, like I said, I have a problem with that. But I do know that a lot of men have anger issues. particularly men in my family and men that I've met. Hi Joe, how are you? So yeah, there's I think this book can go both ways. It identifies mistakes we make when we are asking for something. It teaches you how to break out of these patterns and have more productive arguments. It helps you identify the real issue, so read between the lines. Identify pseudo issues, which are the issues that are actually underlying your argument. So if you're arguing about who's taking out the trash, the argument really isn't about who's taking out the trash. It's about something else. So it talks about that. It addresses anger issues among couples, families, parents, etc. So it doesn't just address, you and your wife or you and your husband. It addresses you and your kids, you and your adult parents, you and your sister. It goes to all of the different relationships that you can have. It also addresses certain specific things, like something called triangulation, which is when you're basically, talking crap to your husband about your kids, but not directly addressing your kids. You're talking crap about your husband to your kids, but never directly addressing your husband. So that's something called triangulation, and that is addressed in this book. That's something huge that happens, I believe, in families. And it's a very, very destructive pattern. It also addresses blaming and shaming, which I really, really liked, because that is a huge problem, I think, in relationships, romantic relationships, but also in certain families. There's always finger pointing, and that is definitely the case in my family. So, that I just wanted to give a concise, hi Spirit, I just wanted to give a concise description of this book. It addresses a lot more stuff than that, but I want to tell you what I like about this book first. So one of the things that I like is that it has dialogues, and I think with some of the other books that I've reviewed, I've told you that I really like the whole dialogue thing. So it's kind of like a script. There's a script in here of a woman and her father, because her father is demanding too much time. Thank you for the finger pointing. Exactly. There's a dialogue where the woman is saying, I don't have time, to just dedicate to my dad. Hi, Nor. But he keeps demanding time of me. Hi, Orlando. Welcome. And she says, how can I tell him that I can't dedicate all of my time to him because I have a husband and a family and all of that? So they go through the script of her talking to her dad, and her dad saying, you never have time for me, and you never, and then it goes through that script, and then it shows you where the mistakes are, and then how you can correct those mistakes so you can have a more productive conversation with your father or whoever. So I really, really like that, because it shows you ineffective versus effective communication. Has different chapters dedicated to different relationships. So, for example, that one was father-daughter. There's also mother-daughter. There's husband-wife. There's mother and children. And the chapters are broken down in that way. So, and again, I kind of don't like the language that they use. Like chapter 4 is anger at our impossible mothers. Yeah, I know my mother is impossible, but I think there's a more sensitive way to put that. That's kind of odd that a psychologist would use that kind of language, in my opinion. Up and down the generations, Katie and her aging father. That's a chapter between the woman that was trying to figure out how to give her dad attention, but still pay attention to her own family. Circular dances in couples. So you and your wife, you and your boyfriend, that kind of thing. So it has the breakdown for specific relationships. So if you're just looking to figure out how to deal with your wife, you can just go look at chapter 3, But I think this book is good to read all the way through, because usually if you're married, you probably have kids, or you have aging parents, so it's good to read the whole book. It gives examples of possible issues and what to do to arrive at a more peaceful resolution. So possible issues that you can have with your kids and your husband all at the same time. Like I talked about triangulation, and what you can do to prevent or to come to a peaceful resolution. Oh, Johnny got in trouble at school. He keeps acting up. My husband doesn't want to help me with him. Okay, so what can we do in order to have an effective argument? You're going to have an argument. Hands down, if you're in any kind of relationship, you're going to have an argument. But the point is to have a productive argument. So to learn how to use language in a way that the outcome will be more productive instead of just being angry and hateful and pointing the finger. So that's what I like about this. The dialogues are great. The chapter breakdown is pretty good. But it is just kind of a narrative book. So it sort of almost like tells different stories, and then it'll do a dialogue, or it'll tell you, instead of doing this, try that. Hi, Alpha. Welcome. So that's the stuff I like. Now, let's get to the stuff that I don't like. Number 1, a woman's guide to changing the patterns of intimate relationships. Anger is not just a female problem, and I can't handle that. Hi, Alpha. How are you? I can't handle that it says that. Hi, Dalton Diaz. Welcome. I wish this book could be revised. Like I said, this was written late 80s, early 90s, and it just really, it's a bit outdated, in my opinion. And like I said, this is a psychologist. This is a PhD that wrote this. I feel like she should have known better. I think now, in this day and age, we are a lot more sensitive with the words that we use. Saying are difficult mothers. Yeah, I can say that my mother's difficult, but or are impossible mothers. But because this is written by a psychologist, I feel that the language should be a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more diplomatic than that. But I think this was kind of like a pop psychology type of book. Like, you know, it must have been a big thing back in the late 80s and early 90s that women had anger issues. So it was like, okay, I'm going to write this book. It's going to be big. You know, it's going to be super popular because this is the thing right now. And I think that was probably the case. I was too young at the time, so I don't remember when this book came out. But it might have been a thing. I don't know if any of you in here are from that generation. Where you were already married in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't know if female anger was like a big thing during that time, but that's kind of what I get out of this book, that it was sort of the trending thing. Nowadays, the trendy thing is mindfulness, meditation, living in the present, living in the now. So you'll see a lot of books like that as well. And I've actually reviewed a lot of books that focus on mindfulness and living in the present. But back in this time, I don't know what the trendy stuff was. It does address females more than men, and I feel that is going to deter men from wanting to read this book. And it shouldn't, because a lot of men have these same anger problems. But it does address females. It talks about women that are in the workforce, that are trying to manage, that are trying to raise children, trying to manage a marriage, trying to manage aging parents, and the specific challenges that these women face. Because I guess back in this time, women were not allowed to say, I'm busy. And I guess nowadays it's a little bit more acceptable because women in the workforce or working women are a lot more common. But I guess back at this time it was still a novel idea. I don't know. Like I said, I was just a child. Got a toddler at this time. But it does address a lot of that. How can a woman address her boss at work without coming off as a bitch? How can a woman address her husband and ask for what she wants in her marriage? There was actually a chapter in here, and I was reading it and I was like, this is kind of ridiculous, where this woman wanted to go on a retreat, and I think it was even like work related or some kind of self development related retreat, and her husband told her no. And I'm reading this book, and I'm just like, whoa, this would not fly nowadays. And in the book, it tells, hi Rupak, welcome. In the book, it tells you how to talk to your husband instead of getting mad and saying, how come I can't go? It tells you to talk to your husband in a certain way so that he understands why you want to go and why this trip is going to be beneficial for you, and how it's going to benefit the both of you, that kind of thing. And it's like nowadays, it's like, well, I'm going, and, it's really a sign of the times, I guess. So if you really want some vintage psychology, this book is probably good for you. But I just, I was reading that chapter and I was kind of laughing, like, I would never, if I was married, I guess I would never think to be like, hey, can I go to this, work development thing, or this retreat? I don't know. I mean, there's the financial aspect of it, I guess, but that wasn't the issue in that scenario. The scenario was her husband didn't want her to go. He wasn't going to give her permission to go. And that is a little bit, I guess it's a little bit archaic. It's kind of weird to sort of, to read that in a book nowadays. But I guess that was an issue back then. I guess if you don't want to have problems with your spouse, you should still ask. I mean, I wouldn't just up and leave and go to a retreat without saying anything to my spouse, but, to ask for permission and to say, am I allowed to, is sort of weird, especially if there's no financial issue or anything like that. So that, again, this book is very dated. And like I said, men have that issue too. There are a lot of situations. I had a situation in my marriage where my husband was going to go it wasn't a retreat, but it was something for work. And, we needed to discuss the financial aspect of it because it was going to be very expensive. And, there was a huge fight over that. Thank you for the hearts. There was a huge issue over that. And hi, Jonathan, welcome. And I wasn't saying you're not allowed to go because it was for work. It was just, how are we financially going to take care of this? So, and of course he got very, very angry, and he was just stomping his feet and throwing a temper tantrum. Hi, Gear, welcome. And instead of throwing a temper tantrum, he could have, used his words and his language and some different negotiating skills and talked to me about it. Hi, how are you? So, this, anger issues are not just a female thing. And I've met many other guys after that, and like I said, people in my family that have lots of anger issues, and we'll talk about that as well. It does not have charts or exercises. It's just more like, if you're saying this, try to change it up this way. So there's no real exercise to do, or a chart to fill in, or a chart to follow. There's no real breakdown of the process. It's just, if you're responding this way, it may help you to respond a different way. Exactly, you have to train your brain, yes. You do have to sort of really read into this book a little bit more and sort of get the gist of it on your own. There's no real breakdown. There's no real steps. It does explain triangulation really, really well, which is good. But you just have to read the book and identify. I think you have to be sort of self-aware in order to get this book. So for people that do not have a good level of self-awareness, this book may not help them. But you do have to be kind of self-aware and sort of say, oh, I think I do this. I think I blame. I think I like to shame my children when I'm trying to get them to be more compliant. So you sort of have to be self-aware in order to really grasp this book. And there's a lot of people that don't believe they have anger issues. So if you don't believe you have anger issues, but you do, you're not going to read this book. There's people that are like, I'm not an angry person, Yes, anger issues run in my family as well. My mom is a very angry person. If you ask her, or if you tell her you have anger problems, she's going to say, no, I don't. I'm a very happy person. Because she has no self-awareness. So you do need a certain level of self-awareness in order to get this this book. What else? It's more of a narrative. It gives scenarios. Like I said, it doesn't have charts or exercises. It just kind of tells a story. You know, like the story I told you of Katie's father. You know, Katie and her father. You know, does Katie have a right to be angry? What's wrong with Katie's communication to her dad? It just describes to you what the issue is. And try these other words instead. So it's more of a narrative. If you like hearing short stories, this book would probably work really well for you. So, like I said before, I don't just talk the talk. I walk the walk. And every book that I read or review, especially if it's a self-help book, I do put it into practice. And I actually had a scenario very, very recently, a couple days ago, almost a week ago. And it's pretty personal. I get kind of weird talking about personal stuff on here, but I think it's a perfect example and it's super fresh in my mind because it just happened. So, like I mentioned, there's a lot of anger issues on both sides of my family with my mom and my dad. And more recently, I had a bit of an issue with my dad. So, it was this past Sunday where he confronted me basically. Well, he didn't confront me. He said, I want to talk to you about this. Hi, Dave. Welcome. And he said, you know, our bills are going up. I live with my parents because of my chronic illness. So he said, our bills are going up, our electricity bill, our water bill, and I'm just going to ask you and your sister to contribute at least $100 a month for the months of June, July, and August, or July, August, and September. And I'm living off of Social Security. I don't work. I'm disabled. I don't have any money to give them. And I also am aware that this issue has nothing to do with money. Because remember, there are pseudo issues. Pseudo issues are the issues that are in between or underlying what the argument is about. So he's upset because the bills are going up and I'm not giving money and my sister's not giving money. This is not a new argument. Exactly a year ago we had the same issue with my mom, but it was not a productive conversation either. But nothing has changed. My income hasn't changed. Things are the same basically. They know I'm still disabled. I'm still sick. But he said, I'm going to talk to you and your sister. I know one of the pseudo issues is that this has nothing to do with my sister. He's just saying I'm going to talk to both of you to make it sound a little bit more diplomatic. My sister had already offered money the year before and they never accepted it. So the issue is with me. You're a 31-year-old grown person. You're living in our home. You're not an adult. We're going to treat you like you're not an adult and you need to hand over money. So immediately I could tell he's not happy. And I said right away, and also too, this book is very big on not being passive aggressive. It says, you know, you just need to be upfront. So I said, I don't have the money. I can't give you any money. I have no money to pay this. Same as last year. And he goes, okay, that's all you have to say. That's all you have to say. I just don't understand. You know, our bills are going up and, you know, we paid for your school and in 4 years we're going to disappear and we'll see how you find your way. And all of a sudden it went from a simple question that could have taken 5 minutes to almost an hour. I want to say an hour's long conversation because to me this wasn't an argument because I was just sitting there not saying anything. But right away, you know, it bothers me because he starts bringing up the past and then starts bringing up the future and not focusing on the present. That's another big thing. You have to focus on the issue at hand, which is we want you to give us money and I don't have the money. So I'm sitting there and I know that if I walk away, he'll lose his mind. If I talk back, he'll lose his mind. Hi, Eric. Welcome. If basically if I breathe, he's going to lose his mind. So I started thinking, okay, what have I learned? What have I gotten out of this book? So I was like, okay, another part of this, of communication, is just listening to someone. So right away I was like, you know what? He just wants to be heard. He just wants to be heard. He's upset. Obviously, my mom's been talking to him, nagging him, telling him, I don't like that she doesn't pay money. I don't like that she's just living here for free. So I know that there is another pseudo issue there. He's annoyed, not with me, but with my mom. She's not telling me directly. She's triangulating, complaining to him, and he's going to come and complain to me, and I'm never going to hear anything from her. So that part of the triangle is missing, but we've got kind of half of a triangle here. So he's telling me, and I just repeat, I'm sorry, I don't have the money. I don't have money to give you. So basically, I was like, okay, I got to keep my cool. I got to stay calm. And there's a piece in here that talks about judging, blaming, criticizing, moralizing, and preaching. So that's the part about Katie and her father. My father doesn't realize I have my own life. My father thinks my world should revolve around him. My father uses me, blah, 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 blah. Blaming, shaming, pointing the finger. So my dad is blaming, shaming, pointing the finger. I know that if I do that in return, it's not going to be productive. So I just tell him, I'm not talking about the past. I'm not talking about the future. I don't have the money right now. I keep focusing on right now. And then he starts saying, because of you, our house payment is high because we borrowed against the house to pay off your student loans. And then I say, well, you know what? I have my own student loans to pay as well. And if you guys wanted me to pay that, I offered to pay that loan, and you guys refused. And he goes, well, I didn't know that. And, I did make some mistakes. I did start pointing the finger. I said, you know what? You guys are going through my room. You're looking for stuff in my room. That was pointing the finger. And again, that didn't get me anywhere. So I saw that was kind of a mistake, and I backed off. Eventually, I saw that he just kept repeating, all you have to do is tell us, that you don't have the money. And I was like, I don't have the money. I know, it's kind of, like I said, I don't like airing my dirty laundry, but because I'm reviewing this book, this was the perfect scenario. And it just happened on Sunday. So it's the perfect scenario and the perfect time to put this into practice. It could not have fallen in a better time frame. So he just kept saying, all you have to do is tell us that you don't have the money. I don't have the money. Well, I don't know, you guys are here, and, I don't know, and blah, 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 and I'm just asking for help, but all you have to say is you don't have the money. Dad, I don't have the money. Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. When I was your age, I used to, that kind of thing. He started getting into the whole, when I was your age, I walked through 6 feet of snow, I gave my mom money, whatever. Thank you for the hearts. So eventually, I just kept repeating, I don't have the money. I was very clear, I don't have the money. I just had to pay $200 to get my glasses fixed. I don't have the money. I have to shell that out. I just paid off my credit cards. I don't have the money. So 45 minutes, an hour later, finally he stops. He did not blow up as bad as I thought he was going to. He was angry, he was upset, but he didn't blow up. I was upset, not as bad as I usually get, because I also have a tendency to blow up. He tends to get insulting. He didn't get that bad. And I ended up walking away, went to my room, and just calmed down. So I can tell you that, this stuff does work. Yes, I stood my ground. And you know what? Standing my ground is something that's new to me. I don't know if you guys are Hispanic or whatever, but you don't stand your ground in Hispanic families. You just do what they tell you to do. Thank you for the hearts. You do what they tell you to do. You're compliant. you just agree to whatever, and that's just the way it goes. And I didn't. So, but I had to be diplomatic, and I had to be clear, and I couldn't point the finger. I couldn't shame. I had to really stay away from that. And for the most part, I did. Yeah, I did do some finger pointing. I did do some blaming and shaming, but for the most part, I stayed away from it. Hi, Berkshire. So it helped. It worked. He didn't blow up. He was still angry. You're still going to be angry. This is not, the other thing too is that this is not going to stop your anger. This is not going to make your anger go away. Anger is normal. Anger is natural. It happens. You're going to get into arguments. That's going to happen. Anger is a thing. It's an emotion. It's a feeling. You're going to have anger. This is just helping you learn how to channel your anger in a more productive way so that you're not being unreasonably mean and unreasonably angry. But this, the scenario with my dad is also a good example of how anger problems are a guy thing as well. They're not exclusive. It is definitely not exclusive to women. And a lot of the stuff in here can also help men. Men have issues at work. Men have issues with their families, especially in this day and age, because guys are participating more in raising their kids, in being at home with their kids, in housework and all of that. So this is definitely good for guys. Guys are just not going to want to read it because it says a woman's guide, So this definitely can use a revision. I used a lot of the same techniques with my husband when I was married, and it helped. But like I said, my husband had a psychiatric condition. But I just tried to stop blaming and pointing the finger at him, and it helped to diffuse a lot of situations. Now, why is this book good for sick people? I always put a chronically ill spin on every book that I read. Being chronically ill is accompanied by a lot of anger. I cannot tell you how many people I have met that are chronically ill and that are just assholes. I will just say it like that. I spoke to a lady once with Lyme disease, and she was just mean. She was a racist. She was just a nasty, nasty person. And I've met a lot of other people with chronic health issues that are mean, that are angry, that are just, besides themselves with rage because they're sick. Anger is a huge thing for sick people. To be honest, it probably goes hand in hand. I was very angry when I was sick, or when I first found out. I was pissed. Why do I have to be sick? Why does this have to happen to me? Why don't my parents understand that I'm sick? So this book can definitely help you learn how to communicate with healthy people, because we resent healthy people. I don't like this person because they're healthy. It can help you communicate with doctors, because doctors are a great source of suffering for us. They make us angry constantly. And it'll just help you how to learn to communicate with people in general, especially when it comes to your illness. It'll help you talk about your illness a little bit better without blaming, without pointing the finger, without saying, because of this doctor I'm sick, or because of that doctor. There were tons of doctors that I saw over the last 10 years that totally missed the mark. And I can be angry for the rest of my life at them because I'm now very, very sick thanks to them. But there's no point. There's no point in being angry at them, and they didn't know any better either. It will help with our families. Like I just gave the example. Here's my dad asking me for money, and I'm a sick person living off of Social Security. I was able to communicate with him the best that I possibly could in order to prevent a huge, huge fight. And it will also help our health. Anger is a huge source of health issues. High blood pressure, headaches, stomach upset, IBS. Anger is at the core of a lot of health issues, and if we help to diffuse it, we're already sick. If we help to diffuse our anger a little bit better, it might alleviate some of our symptoms. So I think that this book is excellent for sick people, just to help us to to not become sicker than we already are. Overall, this is a really good book. If you take it with a grain of salt, it's outdated. That's what I'm going to say. It's not just for women. So don't get offended when some of the chapters are a little sexist. It's just an outdated book. It needs a revision. Hi, Rick. The issues it addresses are for men and women. And also, here's another thing too, guys. For those of you in here that are saying, no, my wife or my girlfriend or my whatever, my mom, my sisters are definitely angry. And yeah, I do know. I have seen it. I have seen it. I have seen women screaming at their husbands in the middle of the street. I'm not saying that women are not angry people. I'm just saying that both men and women do suffer from anger issues, especially in this day and age. I don't know why this psychologist decided to target women. But if that is the case for you, if you are living with an angry wife or an angry sister, an angry whatever, it's good. How are you, Rick? I have seen it. And if you do live in that kind of situation where you're living with an angry woman, you should still read this book. With more reason. You have even more reason to read this book because you're going to sort of see possibly where the source of her anger is coming from. It's not just coming out of nowhere. Women are not just naturally angry and bitchy. You're going to see where the source of her anger may be coming from. You're going to probably understand her side of the issue. Maybe you're going to see where, that you're contributing to it, or maybe you're just not helping to diffuse it. And it'll help you to understand where that anger is coming from. Believe me, I've seen it. There are times when, back in the day when I used to go out partying and going out to clubs, it never failed that I would come out of the club and in the middle of the street there's a drunk girl screaming at her boyfriend and the boyfriend is just tuning her out. And that doesn't work either. I mean, you can't communicate with a drunk person anyways, but standing there and not doing anything isn't going to help. And yeah, I've seen it. I've witnessed knockout, drag-out fights between men and women. I've seen the passive-aggressive, bitterness, those underhanded comments, being snippy with each other. I've seen it. I've heard it all. And if you're living with a woman like that, or a man, thank you, Rick. If you're living with a woman or a man like that, this book is definitely going to help you. It's just going to help you understand where they're coming from. It's going to help you it's going to help you to diffuse the situation. So I highly recommend it regardless of, if you're sensitive to sexism and stuff like that, yeah, you're probably not going to like the way that this book is worded, I guess. But I still recommend it. It's still a pretty good book. I wish they would revise this book for the 21st century. So, guys, that's it. That's all I have for today. Follow me on Twitter, HotSun1003884. Check out my previous book reviews and broadcasts. On YouTube, the link is in my profile. If you want to know more about my illness, there's 2 replays here on Periscope, and there's also a link to my YouCaring page, which gives you more details about my illness. And stay tuned. I might have something else for next Tuesday, but I definitely will have a book review for next Thursday. I'm reading something really, really good right now, and I hope to finish it by next Thursday. It's just a really good book. I'm excited to share it. It's a little bit more modern for those of us that can't handle this kind of sexist stuff. And just, stay tuned. Sometimes I just come on here and I'm just being funny. So yeah, that's it. That's it for the book review. And if you guys are watching the replay, follow me and I will follow you back. I've mentioned before, I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers. I'm almost there, and when I get to 1,000 followers, I have a big surprise for you guys. I hope to get there very soon, and the surprise will be right around the corner. So thank you guys, for those of you that stuck with me. Thank you for listening, and I will see you again soon.